Welcome, everybody. We are here to talk about DAOs on Chia. This is a new chip. It's chip number 24. This video will go up on YouTube, and we'll put up a link to the chip itself. Chips are proposals that anyone can write, and they propose new standards or changes to Chia somehow. So this one is adding DAOs. DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations, and you can read all about it in the chip. You're probably familiar with DAOs. They're a new type of structure, of organizational structure. They allow different people who potentially are pseudonymous or anonymous to join and make decisions on what's going to happen with the organization by voting. In Chia's case, we have something called DAO cats that determine your membership in the DAO. And this is the first iteration for it. I can go over what we have so far later, and I've put up a initial guide to get you started on our doc site. And my name is Dan Perry. I'm a technical writer here at Chia, and I'm helping out with this chip. And Geoff, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Geoff Walmsley. I'm one of the Chia Lisp engineers at Chia, and working together with Matt Howard and Adam and Quix, we've put together the DAO primitive here.
Great, thanks. So why don't we get started? And do you want to just go over what the technical details are? You've got this presentation set up for us.
Sure. Yes. So yeah, from an engineering perspective, the functionality that DAOs required is pretty well defined, right? There's a treasury that controls some amount of funds. There are proposals that get made to that treasury that will, if successful, run some code that then does something with those funds. And then there's some kind of token that is used for voting on those proposals to decide whether they'll pass or fail. So those kind of requirements were kind of broadly set for us because that's just what a DAO is. So our challenge really was about, okay, how do we take that kind of system and then implement it within the constraints of Chia's coin set model? And so there's some kind of unique challenges to that. Because on Chia, everything's a coin. We have the situation where, okay, we have a treasury that controls some funds. We've got proposals to that treasury, but these are coins that are in some sense kind of publicly available. They're coins that anyone can really spend because that's the nature of DAOs, right? Anyone should be able to vote on a proposal with the right token. So some of the kind of standard protections like signatures that you might use aren't really available. So we had to kind of design around some of those limitations. And so some of what I'll go through today just covers that. There's also the fact that the coins are kind of publicly available means we have to look out for things like denial of service attacks and stuff like that. So in terms of the design approach, a lot of the work that we've done so far is about making sure that we understand and have addressed those kinds of challenges. And so kind of where we've got to is to understand and implement around all of that stuff. In terms of like the actual user experience of using the CLI with DAOs at the moment, it might not be as refined and simple as some of the other things you've seen in Chia. So that kind of stuff will come with future iterations. So just broadly, I'm going to kind of cover off the sort of main chunks of functionality that we've built, of which there are kind of four things. So there's the treasury, there are the proposals to that treasury, there are the funds that the treasury controls, and then there's the voting side of things as well. So to start off with the treasury, essentially when you create a DAO, what you're doing is you're producing this treasury singleton. And a singleton's just a coin that whenever it gets spent, it just recreates itself over and over again. And so the treasury coin contains the rules that control the DAO. And so those rules are things like, for a proposal to pass, how many votes does it need? What percentage of yes versus no votes are required? How long does a proposal need to stay alive before it can be closed? That kind of stuff. And then there's a handful of other rules that that to address things like some of these denial of service attacks that could be attempted. So things like when you create a proposal, the DAO basically imposes a fee for you to create a proposal. So that's kind of broadly the treasury. When you create the treasury, you also can mint however many you like of the DAO cats, which are the voting tokens. And so currently, when you create the DAO, you create some number of these tokens, and the distribution of those is left to the creator. Potentially in future iterations, we'll look at kind of slightly more sophisticated distribution methods for that. Okay, so you've created a treasury. You now want to give it some funds. So the purpose of a DAO largely is to provide a way of allocating funds to various things. So the way this is implemented here, rather than that treasury singleton having the funds within it, rather we have a set of coins called pay-to singletons. And so these are just coins that can only be spent if the treasury says that it's approved, basically. So it means that anyone can send funds into the DAO, and you can send either XCH or CATs currently. There is broadly, it is possible to support NFTs and other potential future asset types. But currently we've just implemented for XCH and CATs. And so, so when a proposal gets passed, basically, if it's going to spend some amount of XCH to some address, that funding comes from these pay to singleton coins. So then on to proposals. So, I mean, this is kind of the real heavy lifting bit of the DAO, I suppose. And you know, a lot of the issues that many DAOs have faced is that, you know, essentially they're just running some code, right? And if you don't know what that code does, and you're not certain that it does what somebody perhaps says that it does, there's all kinds of risks that can get opened up. So we've had a lot of discussion internally about, okay, well, how much flexibility do you want to provide in terms of, can anyone just propose any code? And that kind of debate is still ongoing somewhat. But where we landed was, okay, well, we'll create some template proposals that basically just do one thing. And so the three that we've got are, the first one is just to spend some funds. So if you make a proposal that you want to send some amount of XCH to a charity of your choice, then that's just a standard spend proposal. Then you can create a proposal that changes the rules of the DAO. So if you want to change the voting percentage or some of those anti-spam measures, if you know, if they're sort of not quite calibrated correctly, then proposals can come in and change all of those rules. And then finally, the third proposal is to mint more of the voting tokens themselves. So there is also a possibility that you could create your own proposal types. You could adapt the current setup to run any proposal that gets submitted. But the kind of default setting right now is to limit the scope of the proposals that can be passed. And that's something that we'd be quite keen to get some feedback on, because I think most of the sort of engagement with DAOs is going to be around creating proposals and voting on proposals. So just sort of understanding what people are looking for in terms of how that works would be valuable feedback for us to get.
Hey, Geoff, could I pause you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
If you go back to that, so the first type of proposal, spending funds, when I was reading over all your specs and designs, it occurred to me that you're really just proposing to send to a puzzle hash, and it could be any puzzle hash. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So really, part one of the proposal type one gives you a ton of functionality already, because that puzzle hash could do anything, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
just have to be a
So
normal XCH coin.
no. Oh, no. So that can be any kind of subsequent puzzle that you like.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, there's also kind of some work we've been putting in about, okay, how do we integrate this with offers as well? So there's a lot of possibilities that simple proposal type opens up, kind of downstream from the DAO itself.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. So the last piece of this is voting, which is probably where most people will interact with a DAO. So like I said, you initially will receive some kind of cat that is specific to the DAO. So it's a regular cat, but the tail that controls the issuance of that cat is unique to the DAO itself, unique to the treasury of the DAO. So it's slightly complicated in terms of the process for how you vote on proposals. So you have this cat token in your wallet. You then have to lock it into voting mode. And the purpose of this is that one of the kind of difficulties of the coin-set model and using it to vote on potentially multiple proposals in different amounts is that the voting tokens themselves need to know which proposals they've voted on, but also they have to honestly represent exactly which proposals they've voted on. So a huge amount of work went into ensuring that you can't fake any kind of votes. You can't vote twice on the same proposal with the same coins, but also to have the flexibility that if I've got a bunch of DAO cats that I've voted on various proposals, that I still have some utility for those coins. So if I wanted to trade my locked cats with somebody else, I could still do that. I can still transfer them. They will go through that transfer, remembering that they've already voted on proposals A, B, C, and D, and so couldn't be used again. So that was sort of the main technical challenge around implementing the voting tokens. Excuse me. So I think those are kind of the main points. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Geoff. Looks like we've got a couple of questions coming in the meeting chat here.
Okay.
So I'll read them because this won't show up on the video later.
Okay.
The first question from Michael Kirk is, are the DAO features being added because the corp/gov services customers you're talking to have asked for them, or more for feature parity with other smart contract enabled blockchains? Oh, so go ahead if you have an answer.
No, you go. Well, no, not particularly.
My first thought on that is neither Geoff nor I work directly with any customers, and even if we did, we wouldn't be able to talk about specific customers. I think we're more going for step one would be feature parity with other blockchains, but then we want to go beyond that. And so Geoff has introduced a couple of ways in which we've gone beyond that already. And so we'll continue to think of other ways to improve upon what's already out there in other ecosystems. Hopefully that answers it. Geoff, do you have more to add to that one?
Yeah. So I mean, as a kind of general comment, there's sort of the design process is, okay, there's this existing concept of a DAO that we broadly want to bring into the coin-set model. And so there's all this kind of technical stuff problems you have to solve to get that piece working. But then you now have access to all of the benefits of the coin-set model itself. So as well as the primitives and stuff that we've already built. So things like integrating DAOs with offers are things that really kind of only we can do because we're the only Chia is the only blockchain that has offers. So I think the first step was just getting feature parity, but I think, yeah, like Dan said, looking out into the future, there's kind of all the scope for other things that we can do, and also things the community devs can kind of build on top of the stuff that we've done here.
Right. And so I suppose probably everybody here knows this already, but Chia uses what's called the coin set model, which Geoff has referred to a bunch of times. And it's quite a different way of looking at a blockchain from most blockchains because they use an account model, which is similar to having a bank account. And the smart contract would be a program that sits on the blockchain that everybody accesses the same program. And whereas with Chia, everything is a coin, and so a DAO has to be a coin, and the voting tokens have to be a coin, and the type of coin that we use for those is called a singleton, which Geoff already explained. So there's quite a bit of design work that had to go into this, and we're hoping that you guys will like it. I think it will add a lot of functionality that you just, like Geoff said, it would be very difficult to do some of this stuff, such as offers on Ethereum or other account model blockchains. So let's go on to the next question. Would it make sense for minting DAO cats to support the commission features from NFTs, so that if users ever start moving governance tokens around, perhaps to consolidate control, a percentage could be sent back to the core project or treasury? Not sure if that even makes sense.
Yeah, for that specific point, this is sort of slightly tangential, but one of the things we discussed was the concept of delegated voting. So I have a whole bunch of voting tokens, and I could essentially sell my vote by an offer to somebody else. So if Dan wants to vote yes on proposal X, and I'm relatively indifferent but profit motivated, I can make an offer to Dan, which will spend my voting tokens in a way that he decides, the yes vote or whatever. And in return, Dan pays me some fee for doing that. So it's kind of different to what you're describing, but I think in general, the ability to build functionality for more sophisticated voting mechanisms and usage of the DAO cats themselves is entirely possible.
Great. Yeah, I think there's a lot that could go into DAOs in the future as well. Two others that I have earmarked anyway for they're not going to make it into this chip, but we could potentially add them in the future would be the offers part. First of all, where you no longer need to trust the creator of the DAO to send you the cats. So you'd be able to create an offer for DAO cats in exchange for XCH. And then the second thing would, I think that we'd like to add is verifiable credential support. So bringing a couple of our other primitives together into the DAOs so that you can only join the DAO if you, for example, are not an American citizen or something like that. The primitive is not quite ready or those features have not quite been implemented on this, but it's something that we're looking at in the future. So this is just the first iteration. And then we're totally open to other ideas from the community as well, of course. Are there other questions out there? Sounds like no. So yeah, next up, I think what we want to do going forward here is the chip is currently pretty early on in the chip process. What we want is for people to play with DAOs if possible, maybe use DAOs on a test net and maybe create your own, get together with a couple of friends. That'd be great. Then you could try them out, and we just need to do a bunch more testing before we say this is totally ready for mainnet. We're getting another question here. So once DAO logic is launched, do you expect apps like blockchain explorers to be able to pick apart these new transaction types, like being able to summarize projects, votes, etc.?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, if you interact with the CLI tooling that we've produced so far. A lot of what it does is to pick up on, so you kind of subscribe to a DAO's treasury coin, and that's enough that you can then, okay, I can track all the proposals that are coming in, the proposals that have previously been voted on. What did that proposal actually propose? So some of the kind of parsing of the code that's actually going to get run to present that back as kind of human readable information. We've done, some of the sort of basic stuff around that. But yeah, I'd expect that, well, it wouldn't be impossible to imagine, kind of similar to what we have with the NFT marketplaces, that there might be something similar with DAOs, that you can look through a list of all the existing DAOs, see sort of what they've done, what proposals are outstanding, what do those proposals mean, that kind of stuff. I could easily, comfortably see something like that existing.
Great. Yeah. And the other thing I guess we didn't really mention much, at least, is there's no GUI right now for DAOs. It's all command line. So it's not going to be super interesting for non-technical people out there to use, but we think the primitive is quite powerful and we'll be continuing to build on top of it.
Yeah. And I would just add that the CLI itself is also kind of complicated. The nature of DAOs is that there's a lot of moving parts, and so it might take a little bit of time to kind of wrap one's head around kind of why some of the things are the way they are. But I'm very happy to answer anyone's questions on Keybase or Discord or wherever, if anyone has trouble with the CLI.
Great. Yeah. One thing that makes DAOs complicated is that almost by definition requires multiple users. And I've done a lot of testing on this on a single computer with different wallets and switching back and forth, and that can complicate things. But yeah, I guess the next step then would be, as Geoff mentioned, you can chat with us on Discord, on I think Chia Development is our channel, or the Chips channel. We're also on Keybase if you want to direct message us. We've got one more question coming in that says GUI users would not have access to the CLI DAW system. Oh, probably DAO system. Oh, right. So for now, he's just asking about the GUI, I think. So we don't have any graphics right now, no GUI. For now, it's just CLI. And I have put a guide out. I'll put a link to this on the YouTube video, and I can put it in Discord as well. But I put out a guide on how to get started with DAOs. We've got the whole a reference for all of the commands that you can do and all of the types of actions that you can do on DAOs to use them to get people started. But yeah, right. There's no graphics right now. So let's get the word out about DAOs on Chia, and please send in your questions on Discord, on Keybase, and ideally we get some at least testnet DAOs running that are actually using this, and then we can push things forward from there. And it'll be more of a longer term thing before the chip gets finalized, but we're on that track right now. So thanks everybody for joining. I'll give you one more chance. Anybody have any last minute questions? I think that's it for now. So thanks, Geoff. This is really great. Thanks for the presentation.
Thanks, Dan.
See everybody later. Take care.
Ciao.